A really good tip for helping you to develop your brand story is actually to use stories from your customers. So an example of this would be GoPro. Their brand story is all about helping people capture and celebrate life's most meaningful moments. And instead of going out and telling that to people, they actually take the content that people capture using their GoPro, and they use that to kind of pass on the story. The same with Apple with their iPhone. They did a huge marketing campaign called Shot on an iPhone, and that was all about taking photos that their customers had taken on an iPhone and using those as their marketing campaign. So they developed a story or a narrative around that for that particular campaign, and that can be a really strong way of developing a brand story that your customers really get drawn into, and it's really great strategy for stories that people want to pass on. So yeah, one of my big top tips is to kind of try and develop a story from how your customers are using your product. A big part of your brand story is your brand personality, and it's one of the 3 Ps from when I was talking about defining your brand story. So the first one was purpose, the second one was pillars, and the third was personality. But quite often startup owners and business owners can kind of be like, I don't know what my personality should be. How do I go about developing a personality? So the first tip I would say is definitely don't deviate too much from your own personality. So if you're a kind of easygoing, relaxed kind of person, and then your brand's very fast-paced and quirky, and you kind of, there will be a jar there, and it won't be authentic. And the other tip I would say is to look into what we call brand archetypes. Now, the term was coined by the psychologist Carl Jung, and he basically said that everybody falls into 12 certain personality archetypes or traits. So what you can actually do is fit your brand into one of these traits, and the reason that works really well is because people are drawn to what they are familiar with, and subconsciously people are familiar with these certain personality types that they come across in everyday life. So if your brand can fall into one of these personality types, it's a behavior that they are comfortable and familiar with, and they'll therefore feel drawn to your brand. So an example would be one of the archetypes is called the hero, and Nike falls into that brand archetype. One of the brand archetypes is called the outlaw, and Virgin would fall into that brand archetype. So if you looked up brand archetype, you can actually then look at all these famous brands, and you'll see how they fall into the different categories. So if you can find a category that really you think your brand would fit into, then that can really help you then shape what your content and how you speak, and therefore you're not kind of starting from scratch.